Hi, everyone. Kartik Krishnaiyer here. Very special guest to talk to us today about USL's massive promotion and relegation announcement from last week, and also a little bit about USL League One, which he runs, which is Leo Neal, the Senior VP, Senior Vice President at the USL League office. Kartik Krishnaiyer for Beyond the 90. So excited to be joined by Leo Neal today. Lee doing such a great job running League One, USL League One. And we've had so much talk about Division One and promotion and relegation the last few weeks. One of the things that I don't think has been undercovered is how this affects League One and smaller communities and the build out you guys are doing, which has just been tremendously nationally.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. And, what a great job with the podcast and some of the stories that you go out and tell. So I appreciate that from the League One side of things. Look, it's been great. It's not a negative thing at all. We're all part of the team. Myself and the president of the championship, Jeremy, is next door. And obviously Paul McDonough. We all work very closely in this whole process because it's all interconnected. But it's really exciting for me on a personal note and the League One existing teams and potential new teams coming down the line of this topic with ProRel, because it gives that opportunity for a team to go up to the next level. And, that's exciting for anyone who's coming involved, whether you're a player, an owner, spectator, supporter, whatever it may be. It's just an exciting time to be part of the USL and particularly USL League One.
So, obviously, you guys have expanded to all corners of the country now. Spokane, Portland, Maine, Naples, Florida, AV Alta. So you have kind of the four corners covered of the country. And Naples has been tremendous. I can't wait to get to a game there, which I'm going to do in the next few weeks. This might be a little bit of League One versus championship competition. Each of the first 3 weeks I've been at a championship match. So I need to get to a League One match. The regionalization of the league is coming, right? And you're filling in the map, and you've got clubs in the middle of the country. You've had Forward Madison since the beginning. Texoma came in this year. You've had Omaha since the beginning, although they may move to Division II at some point. Talk a little bit about that, because once you're able to regionalize the leagues, I think there's just so much potential for growth with medium-sized and smaller markets around the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a tough ask if you're playing in Naples, having to go to Spokane, 2 or 3 times a season and vice versa. And like you said, rightly, my experiences of coming to the US and understanding how big this country is isn't the realization until you're in here and you start getting in the car and driving across some of these states that, take several hours to get across. So it's very different to obviously the European leagues model and format. The country is just so big. So naturally, as we, and obviously we're newer league in relation to the championship, but as we start to look at some critical mass numbers on expansion teams, we will then look at and continue to look at whereabouts from a regionalized perspective. We can start looking at that travel element for teams and making it competitive, but also taking out some of the burdens that are the long distance travel and the expense around those types of things, because our teams invest a lot of money into these areas, and without that the league doesn't obviously go in the direction it's going in. So we're really appreciative of that side of things, but it's an ongoing process that as we get to a number of teams, it makes it easy to start looking at more of a east and west or east central west or regionalized areas. So all of those things we will constantly look at and have been looking at for a number of years, along with the expansion team.
Yeah, travel always an issue. I can attest to that working in lower division soccer for as many years as I have. And quite frankly, from covering the sport, I mean, I go on TalkSport regularly, Lee, and every time Exeter and Carlisle are in the same division and Exeter is traveling to Carlisle or vice versa, or a club from the South is going up there, I hear about it. Like, isn't this really difficult on them? So it's tough everywhere, travel. So that's great news. You're filling in the map. I mean, it's really exciting sitting where I am in Florida. You brought Naples in this year, Sarasota next year, potentially Fort Lauderdale, potentially Pensacola in the near future. Truthfully, Statesboro, Georgia is not very far for us. So, Tormenta has always been kind of in our region. It feels like you're filling in the map in such a way that you're growing the game in places which were ignored before, and now we're finding players that are coming through those clubs that are becoming important professional players. Connor Antley, for instance, I think of him from Tormenta. He's now playing in MLS. There are several other examples of that, of guys who've gone to Europe even. Tell us a little bit about that, because there's a player development function to what you're doing as well, and developing players in places that maybe the scouts haven't gotten to in the past.
Yeah, look, the next generation of talent isn't just in big cities. It's actually in some of the rural areas, where they have access to maybe more space to do things. And that's where I think we have an appetite to try and look at delivering soccer to local and smaller communities. And, I was in Texoma this past weekend and, for their home opener, and being part of that project, obviously, for the last 2.5 years, and to see them play their first professional game with over 3,000 people there, and you start to look at what the team's made up with. It's made up of people from in and around that area that have traveled less distance to go to one of the major cities to be one of the team, or one part of one of the other professional teams. And so it's really exciting from our perspective to look at bringing soccer more locally to the people in those areas that maybe have been overlooked in the past. But certainly for us, that's about what we're trying to do, bringing it to more localized areas and making it a key vocal point for the area to use that for lots of positive methods on and off the pitch.
Yeah, and Texoma, not far from Dallas, AV Alta, not far from LA, Sarasota coming in next year, not far from Tampa and St. Pete. So I think another thing I really like about what League One is doing is you're going into these areas that are these places that are on the periphery of large metropolitan areas where there might be an MLS team or a USL Championship team, but the local market, like the local neighborhood market, is being served. Texoma, to me, is a perfect, and AV Alta, those two, perfect example of that. Walk us through that a bit, because that seems to be part of your expansion strategy, and I think that's something that's, quite frankly, maybe 10 years overdue in American soccer. I mean, I'm glad you guys are doing it now.
Yeah, and it's a bit of both. One, we're identifying those areas, but also the people within those areas are identifying us as a league that they want to be part of. And, they're driving a passion for something that maybe didn't exist 5-10 years ago. And now they see a real link from what they were doing to the ability to entry point into the professional game. So it's a bit of a unison in that approach, and the timing of when this is coming out and when we're launching is married to what's going on in their markets. I think naturally what you have is you have really strong, passionate people in the local area that love the game, and that really want to try and do more things with the game. And whether that be from a senior level or from a youth level, or even boys and girls, because obviously we're in lots of different areas as well. So I think there's lots of different things that we will go through, but I do see a synergy in some of the people in those local areas now actually coming towards us and being more approachable in the topic than they've ever been about bringing professional soccer to those smaller markets.
How much does ProRel motivate expansion in those smaller markets? Because, I mean, my sense has always been if you give a pathway or the potential or the hope to get to the top, you get investment at this level. I mean, we've seen that in Europe. We've seen that around the world. And in the United States, we've never had that before. You invest in a third division team, you're stuck in third division. You don't have to breach confidentiality with any of the conversations you're having, obviously. But tell us how, because I just feel like there's so much momentum since your announcement, particularly for potential League One investors.
Yeah, as I said, it's the entry point into the professional game, first of all. And I think there's this real David and Goliath type story where smaller markets like to go up against the bigger markets. We have it with
Absolutely.
the Open Cup, and we have it like once a year where the smaller teams can go and, pitch. It's a game against 11v11, and sometimes when you cross that white line, that's all the difference is those 11 players against 11 players. And anything can happen in football where if you have a really good day and everyone performs really, then you can beat some opposition teams that you wouldn't necessarily expect to over the longer period. So bringing that opportunity for smaller markets to go into bigger markets, and vice versa, for bigger markets and bigger teams, players to come into some of the smaller markets and see some of the good work that's being done with coaching, facilities, stadiums. They marry up, again, very well. So it's most of the conversations I've had since arriving in the US, like, everyone's following the Wrexhams and the stories of Luton and, even my old club, Ipswich, for going through the ranks and then getting to the top league. It's the smaller markets playing against the bigger teams. And so whereby we could have Statesboro, Georgia playing against, I think, Phoenix or one of the bigger markets we've got. It's exciting for them and exciting for us to be involved in it, and the players to play in it. So I think all of that rewards success for teams that do well on the pitch and elevates them to the next level of competition. And as a player going through in that process, that's all you want to do. You want to be able to put yourself up against the very best opposition you can and continually striving to get better year upon year.
So Jägermeister Cup has been a rousing success, at least from my perspective in year one. Now you've got the championship clubs in. Talk about the local rivalry aspect of it, because here in Florida, Tampa Bay is going to get to play FC Naples. The Rowdies are going to get to play FC Naples. Miami FC is going to get to play FC Naples. Tormenta, which I've always felt is like kind of on the periphery of Florida. It's not. It's Georgia. I'm not saying it's not, but it's kind of local for us. They are going to get to play both Tampa Bay and Miami this year, and maybe in the future Sarasota, Fort Lauderdale, whoever else in that competition. How important is that, not just in terms of regional play and creating regional derbies, but also the David versus Goliath story? Because as you fill in the map, as you have promotion and relegation, it'll feel just like Europe. Not only Open Cup, but then you also have this Jägermeister Cup where you are going to get to play teams from a higher division in your local area.
Yeah, it started obviously last year with the League One taking the initiative and trying to look at. So one of the things we did in conjunction with that was, which we haven't spoken about, is the balanced schedule. I think to have promotion and relegation, that's a key topic that we obviously want to be able to move forward with. So in order to look at some of the total number of games that we would like teams to have and teams would like to have for their businesses to run as well, we have other cup competitions, and then that part of it being able to compete locally, so we can drive fandom. So like you naturally said, last week we had Naples versus Sarasota in the Open Cup, and we had fans travelling, and that's very rare in the USL at the moment. We saw it in the final, actually, with the USL Championship final. If any watched that, obviously Rhode Island took fans to their game for the final, which is great. So we're in the very first stages of travelling to and from games. Now, one element that we can help supporters with that is making sure that the games are a little bit closer and trying to build those rivalries. And rivalries take years upon years of history to kind of, take to formation. So it doesn't just happen overnight. You've got to start building it from somewhere. And I think the introduction for these kinds of competition with the Jaeger Cup will allow us to get two teams together, maybe that haven't been promoted or relegated, but get the opportunity to play against each other and their fans to experience what game day is like, where you can either protect your patch as a rivalry or you go into the opposition's patch and you try and steal their points and come home with them. So it's kind of that element.
Last question. Do you have a number in mind in terms of maybe build out for USL League One in this new structure? I mean, I'm guessing Division One, maybe 16 to 18 teams. Championship, it seems 24. Maybe it's because of my orientation with the English system. 24 seems like the optimum number for Division Two, like it is in the championship there. Division Three, are we looking at something like 40 teams, or is it less? Or do you have a number in mind, or you're just going to see where it takes you?
That number, we haven't put an exact number on it yet, and I think like the points we discussed earlier on is simply looking at the geography and making sure that, I think the last thing that any regionalisation aspect we have towards this league, where you play each other maybe too many times and then it becomes devalued in a game. So it's trying to make sure that you get the right balance of, the home and away schedule, and you can have that competition in the cup competition, but maybe when you add two more fixtures on because they quite don't have critical mass, that it becomes a bit diluted. So it's trying to get the rivalry at the right level. So we'll work through that with expansion as the years come up. But yeah, I do see getting to those similar types of numbers, whether we go east and west, like I said, or into 3 or 4 regions, that's still to be decided. But it's definitely the vision we see where we're going with the league and how we're going to try and make those elements a lot more accessible and a lot more affordable.
And I guess I should just add this as the last question. When you break into those regions, obviously, I assume the regions based on who gets relegated might change from year to year, but generally similar geographic framework once you break into regions.
Yeah, it's again part of the jigsaw puzzle that we're trying to work through, and that'll be done with the league and the committees and the teams to try and look at, how and best serves that format. But in hypothetically speaking terms, yes, looking at regionalisation of where teams go up and down would be the best place to start, just to make sure that we can continue with the expansion elements of the leagues to make sure they can grow out properly. Having every team promoted from the east side and not the west side, and not having the right balance could be difficult long term, but definitely things that we'll work through with teams. Like I said, it's such an exciting time for the USL and League One particularly, that we've just got a lot to work through, and which we will. We're doing the work now, and we have been doing it for a number of months, so we'll continue to do that. We'll listen to the teams and the fans, and we'll come back, and we'll hopefully have the best possible process for ProRel we can put in.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Keep up with the good work, and we're so excited about the build right now at USL League One.
No, I appreciate it. Likewise, and stay in touch. Look, anything we can do from the league side of things to continue. We appreciate you telling the story as well. It's important for us as we go out that more people get to understand exactly what's going on. So appreciate it from our perspective.